So how about the digital world then? Well, we talked a lot about that in the beginning of the course, so we are not going to make this too long. However, there are a few things that I still need to point out. And just because I put this last doesn't mean that it's not important. Far from it. In fact, for most of us, today's super stimulating digital world is the precise reason for why we want to do a dopamine fast in the first place. Heck, you could even do one of the fasting protocols where the only thing you change is your online behavior, and it would still benefit you greatly. Just the fact that the digital world doesn't spike your dopamine as high as cocaine or some other heavy drug does not mean it can't hurt us. No, because most of us are constantly bombarded with it all day long, and our brain get no breaks from it, except when you're sleeping. But now, let's get to my important point with this lesson. One super important thing I want you to understand about the online world is that not all activities online are equally bad for your dopamine system. For example, there is a huge difference between mindfully watching a 3-hour-long Netflix movie versus spending 3 hours aimlessly browsing on social media, getting dragged along by the feed, the notifications, and all that jumping from one thing to another and only keeping your attention on one thing at a time for about 3 to 5 seconds. Big difference between those two. They are not even in the same universe. The Netflix example is nothing to worry about at all. But man, if you frequently do the social media example almost all days of the week, and maybe you even spend more than 3 hours total time per day, then you are definitely blasting your dopamine system with a supernormal stimuli that will affect you. But hey, that's why we do dopamine fasting, which is great. If you're the least bit unsure about what activities online are bad and good, in general we can say that doing work, studying, and mindful recreation is okay. But whenever you start jumping from one thing to another like a brainless monkey, chasing the next best thing just because you're bored and need more stimuli, then it's no longer productive or a smart thing to do. So for example, watching educational YouTube videos is perfectly fine, just as long as you don't keep jumping off every video, constantly clicking to a new suggested video after only a few seconds, and you keep doing that for several hours a day. Now, I'm not saying that you will fry your brain if you do the chasing behavior a few times a day, but you need to remember the Richard Solomon's graph and how long-term repeated actions that you do way too much of may indeed affect your dopamine set point long-term. Now, the absolute worst thing for your dopamine system you could be doing online is fapping to porn sites. Nothing, and I really mean nothing of today's online stimuli will desensitize your dopamine system faster and more severely than that. And I should know because I have a history of having to overcome a porn addiction myself, so I've done my homework on this. It took me a long time to get out of it too, but I've been free for several years now, so now I'm fine. If you're still skeptical whether or not online porn really can cause addictions and desensitization and all those kinds of problems, then you can find a link to the site Your Brain on Porn and the research site down below. On that page, you can find 60 neuroscience-based studies, serious brain studies, who all support the addiction model. So yeah, there is no doubt anymore. it is really a thing. I really have to stress this. Nothing spikes dopamine higher than porn that you can do online. Because as you remember from module 2, nothing is considered more important for Mother Nature than to carry our DNA to the next generation. And your reptilian brain thinks that whenever you're fapping to porn, you're having real sex. And not only that, but since you got so many gorgeous, willing females there at the same time, your reptilian brain goes, "Oh man, you have hit the evolutionary jackpot." So it really skyrockets your dopamine to the highest possible level. And then you can even keep it there, sky high, for hours if you keep clicking from video to video, scene to scene, on and on. Now, it is possible to get your dopamine to spike even higher, but not without using chemical drugs. So porn is the worst thing you can do online. You know, when I wrote the outline for this module, I was a bit unsure whether or not I should be saying what I'm about to say, because I know there's a risk that people will misinterpret my words, but I decided to go for it because I just think it's so important. And here it comes. My personal experience of having gone through periods where I was overusing alcohol and overusing online porn. I have to say that for me, online porn actually desensitized my dopamine system more than the alcohol, even though I drank a lot of it. Here's the disclaimer though. I'm not saying that porn is more dangerous because alcohol affects every single organ in your body. But I am saying that the negative effects on my dopamine system was worse from having porn binges versus alcohol binges. I'm also not saying that is the case for you. I'm just saying that was the case for me. Granted, I was using porn in perhaps the most destructive way possible. Meaning I could sometimes spend hours on a porn site, clicking from video to video, searching for the perfect one to finish on, which obviously never comes. But I was there endlessly chasing the next better one, driven by sky-high dopamine. As you remember, if dopamine could speak, it would say, "Something good is about to happen. Something good is about to happen. It's about to happen." So it drives you forward, and I'm ashamed to say that some of my worst sessions were many hours long. And oh man, it was not good. Even pains me to talk about it now. And just in case you're wondering, no, I am no longer using porn, not even in moderation, not even between the fasting protocols, because I know from experience that if I start opening that door again, it will suck me right back in. Now, you might be able to use it in moderation between your fasting protocols. I'm certainly not judging anyone who does. Again, it is your life and your rules. But for me, as a former porn addict, that specific low-value dopamine activity is no longer an option. However, if you choose to use it in moderation, I would still like to end by saying, be careful with it. Be extremely careful, because even if you were lucky enough to not develop an addiction to it, online porn still hammers your dopamine system so much more than what aimless browsing on social media does. It's really the worst. So, just a little something to consider there.